to the Tristan LaFerriere Gallery Talk for a Black-Haired Boy. Hi, Tristan.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Yes, thank you. And we're going to go through this remarkable exhibition installation. So just you want to jump into it and share a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I grew up, I was born in Pennsylvania, but I grew up here in Washington, New Jersey, actually. And I started writing at a pretty young age. I was probably about 7 or 8 when I realized it was something that I was really interested in doing. I would usually write little short stories in my composition books and things, but as I got older, I would say junior high, high school age, I really got serious about writing. I started working on novels, and Black-Haired Boy, the novel that the show is all about, I started when I was a sophomore in high school. So it was a long project. It took about 12 years to finish. I ended up going to college at the College of New Jersey, TCNJ, where I studied English, and I was working on different drafts of the novel then. It was really a book that changed so much over the years because I went from 16 to 28, so it was really one of those projects that changed with me as I grew older. And it's the biggest project that I worked on. There were other novels I started and was serious about before Black-Haired Boy, but this is the one that just, there was something in the heart with this one, and I wanted to share this story with the world. It became very important to me, and I realized after so many years of working on it that the characters meant the world to me, and I had to finish this book. It took a long time to perfect it in my eyes, but here we are 12 years later, and it's finished.
Oh yeah, congratulations. It's quite a feat.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit about what's behind you here?
Yes. So the book, I'll give a little overview for those of you who don't know. Black-Haired Boy, it's an epistolary novel, meaning it's written in journal entries. Follows 14-year-old Kieran Northrup, a teen boy who in 2006 has just moved from Los Angeles to Kings Valley, Pennsylvania, which is a wealthy suburb in Berks County. And he lives with his successful parents and older brother, who is this very popular athlete. So this hoodie here is meant to be his brother's hoodie, Kings Valley Red Devils being the local high school mascot. It's all fictional. And class of 2007, because that's the year that his brother was set to graduate. And Kieran is represented on these shirts. This is meant to be his silhouette. He is the black-haired boy. Kieran is a gay, closeted teen who is very introverted, very uncomfortable with himself.
And these are hand-painted by you, right?
They are hand-painted by me. I use fabric paint directly on the shirts. And Kieran's hair is not naturally black, it's dyed. So that's something that you find out early in the novel. His hair is actually auburn, but he dyes his hair black, wears black most of the time. He likes to blend in. He's very, very introverted, like I said. So really the book starts off with him writing in his journals because he doesn't really feel he has any other outlet. He is slowly drifting apart from his older brother, who he was once somewhat close with. He really is uncomfortable where he is in this new town. Really, a lot of people would probably be thankful for what he has. He lives in a nice home, you know, pretty much has it all, but, you know, it's what he feels inside. He feels very empty and lost. So early on, we get a sense of this lost child who is starting high school and is quite frightened because he doesn't understand himself.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of a nice segue into the tragedy, you know, of with this museum part. So you want to shift over to that?
Yes. So over here we have a wall they're all pieces from Kieran's life, specifically this story. And I'll start with this one because it's a bit different from the others, but this is the door knocker of the Northrup residence in Kings Valley. You can see that their name is engraved on the door knocker, and it's actually in the novel. He mentions this, saying that he hates how posh everything is. The rest of these pieces are the result of, early on in the novel, there is this tragic car accident that changes Kieran's life. And it's really the inciting incident of the book. The story is pushed forward by this one event. So each one of these pieces are meant to be pieces of wreckage that were recovered from this wreck. The car crashes into a lake. So you can see that it's a SAAB that crashed, and that's the emblem and the logo. It's quite faded. The license plate, which you'll notice is registered in June of 2006 when the book starts. And these are little pieces that were pulled from that car. And these CDs that were recovered, you can tell that they're water damaged. Like, as I said, the car did crash into a lake, so everything is water damaged. And I really just treated these as found objects because I wanted to...
Yeah, these are actually pieces from you've collected. These are actually from vehicles.
Yes.
You know, the SAAB logos and everything.
Yes, these came... I really went and did a hunt for these items because I knew what I was writing about and I wanted to be able to touch it in my hand and see it all in person. I wanted you to feel like this is the memory of this tragedy, like you would see in a museum of something that's commemorating or a memorial for such an event. And so I treat these as found objects. Of course, they're not from a real wreck because it's fiction, but I wanted to make you feel like you're really experiencing what this character went through, this tragic event in his life.
Here we got a howdy from Gallery 88.
Hello.
Yeah, and anybody that's watching,
Thank you
feel
for that.
free to post a question, you know, here or later, and we would love to respond to. If you have anything you want to share or thoughts, please do. So, but yeah, do you want to go into how you feel about the current state of the arts?
I think I've noticed that probably since I've started paying more attention to the arts, I've noticed that I think we have a lot of more room for creative expression. It's a very strange time with the pandemic and these new normals, as they say, but with so many people staying home, with these different lifestyles, I feel like artists are really coming up with new creative ways to share their art and make art. And I think it's being more appreciated, which I think is wonderful. I think that with social media especially, I'm noticing more artists are kind of coming out of their shell. It's nice to be able to see shows virtually.
Yeah,
which,
for sure.
Which is I'm so thankful that we have now, especially in a situation like this. If we didn't have the technology we wouldn't be able to share this with people right now.
Yeah, right.
For people that couldn't be here. But I think also as a writer, it's given me the time to really sit down and dive into these stories.
Yeah.
I don't know how other artists feel right now. I know I have talked to other artists who feel that it's and not to make it a political discussion, but just from the past few years, a lot of heated politics, the pandemic. It's a lot of frustration and feeling comes out in artwork, and I think it's a wonderful way to express those frustrations in a healthy way. So I think arts have been really personal lately.
Yeah.
I've noticed that it's been an outlet for so many people.
Yeah, indeed. Well, you're in a unique position in that the show is you're a writer and working in a visual art space.
Yes.
So how does the words translate to the visual for you? I always find that fascinating how when you kind of like cross over media.
Well, whenever I write a novel, and we can specifically talk about this one, of course, I like to think of it as a movie, a full-length motion picture. Another thing that I grew up with was film, so whenever I'm writing a book, I cast my characters. I think of an actor who looks like them, who I would want in that role. And then the set building is really a big part of it for me. I try to be very descriptive of my set because I really want to immerse the reader in where these things are happening. So with all of these found objects, I write about them, but then I also do research. So, for instance, this car, it's a 1991 SAAB 900 convertible. What I will do is if I write that a character drives that car, I will study that car. I'll know where all of the pieces of that car are, how you turn the car on, like where the radio dial is, because I want to write it as if you're really sitting in it. So I will watch videos, tours of that very model, and make sure that it's accurate. And the same goes for settings, rooms. I will take a house and base the house in my book on a real home that I've been in so that I know every corner of it. I want it to be as personal as possible. So I don't know how other writers think, but personally I like the story to be more than just what's on the page. I want you to be able to experience it in more ways. So I thought the best way to do this was to give you things that you can hold and then read the book, and if you can actually touch something, you really have an understanding of what I'm talking about.
Right. You know, on another dimension. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good segue into the installation part here.
Yes.
So let's take a look over at this.
So this section is meant to be Kieran's bedroom, and the reason that I wanted to do this, like I said, I want you to really immerse yourself in Kieran's world. This is his most intimate space. It's his safe place. As a gay teen, his room is his escape. So he lives in this really wonderful home, has so many things, but spends most of his time here. And I wanted people who come in here to really feel like they're seeing his life in the most intimate way. I went around and just found objects that remind me of this era, the mid-2000s, and this music genre of emo, alternative, punk, all of these very specific for the time genres of music. And I found posters that were of the period to make sure it was authentic. And even down to the calendar here, which is from September 2006. And I actually had it like personalized so that the first week here is the first week that the book opens.
Yeah, the attention to detail is really exquisite.
Thank you.
Yeah, even in things that are hidden, you know, like this box, the Yahtzee box.
Yes, so the Yahtzee box, I'll pull that out.
Yeah.
And if you open it, there are scorecards in here with the characters' names on them, so it's really like this belongs to him. There are hidden things, but it's meant to be as authentic as possible. Like you've really stepped into this character's bedroom when he's not there. I wanted his spirit to come alive. And to the textbooks under the bed too.
Yeah, and you invite gallery goers to like sit with the bed and even write in the journal, right? Let's talk about the.
Yeah, so his journal is here, and really the whole story is told through this journal. And I want people to. Kieran to me is this very real person, and I wanted to see what people had to say to him. People who know the story or know who he is from what I've described. I wanted to see what people have to say to him. I wanted this to be a very collective, personal thing for people to sort of take Kieran under their wing. Because to me, he's the representation of this lost teenager.
Yeah. Well, can you talk a little bit about your influences? It could be art or non-art influences.
I would say since writing is my main medium, I take a lot of inspiration from Stephen Chbosky. He wrote The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which when I was in high school was my favorite novel. I take the inspiration from him because I found his writing to be the most honest. I'd never read a book before that depicted a teen boy's life so accurately. It always felt like an adult trying to sound like a teenager, and that's something I never wanted to do either. With Black Haired Boy, I wanted to really feel authentic, like you've picked up this boy's journal that you've discovered somewhere. I didn't want it to sound like me trying to be like someone else. I wanted it to really be Kieran's voice. I tried to develop this voice for him. So I get a lot of that from Chbosky. There's a writer named Nick Bird who I took a lot of inspiration from. He wrote a novel called The Vast Fields of Ordinary, which was released in 2009. And that was one of those books that I picked up and I just immediately felt something. It was hard to even describe, but the way he described his settings and his characters, it felt real to me, and it was another LGBT story. So I really take a lot of inspiration from that book, and I think that's the only book he's written, but it was very powerful indeed. And in other mediums, Kubrick.
Yes.
I say Stanley Kubrick just because I always found him as a director, he didn't release that many films. He didn't make that many films, but they were all really good. They were all on point. And that's what I strive to do with my writing. I don't want to be a writer who writes 20 books a year. I want it to be, if it's one good novel every decade, I'm happy with that. I want it to be that strong. I don't want an assembly line of novels. I want it to be really, I want my heart to be in it. So that's why I think Kubrick is an inspiration to me there. I also love John Hughes. John Hughes played a big role in this story because I love how John Hughes could really embody a teenager and the teenager story, whether it was comedic or serious. And while Black Haired Boy is a serious story, there are comedic elements in some ways, and I tried to think of Black Haired Boy as the story that if John Hughes were still alive, he could direct today, sort of his 2020 vision, whereas he's known for his work in the 80s and early 90s. So I was thinking a lot about that, having teenagers living in a wealthy suburb but not feeling fulfilled. I find that that's a very common theme in John Hughes' work. So I had that in mind a lot. There's actually the Door Knocker over here. Directly references John Hughes. The little blurb about it right here. The Door Knocker at the Northrup residence, 1135 Rivard Court, Kings Valley, Pennsylvania. So one of my favorite Hughes films is Home Alone. And I only recently read the screenplay, which is somewhat different from the finished film. And in the original screenplay, which is not the way it is in the film, the address of the house in Home Alone was 1135 Rivard Boulevard. So that was sort of my nod to Hughes, and that Kieran lives in this fictional address that is inspired by
there's little Easter eggs, references.
Yes.
Wonderful.
I like to do little things like that. Even down to certain objects, like in the house and things like that. Certain, like the cars that the characters drive. Kieran's parents both drive Buicks. In the film Home Alone, there were Buicks in the garage. It was almost like taking one of those older 80s films and placing it in 2006. I wanted it to be a modern John Hughes story in a way. So I take a lot of inspiration from John Hughes and his writing.
And I think one other interesting artifact is the original book.
Yes.
You pull it out. So you have that here. This
So under
the
Kieran's
first
pants is the original book, and it probably looks funny because this journal I bought at Borders back in the day. This would have been in 2008. And this is the very first copy. So I started this in high school. At the time, I printed out pictures of people who I thought represented the characters. Of course, the characters had different names, so I crossed them out so you could understand who they are now. They're very faded, of course. And it's handwritten, very bad, almost comically bad, but in a way that's a good thing because it shows how far it's come. And it's in surprisingly good shape for its age. It looks almost brand new.
Yeah,
I guess this is the original copy.
I love having this here.
Thank you. So many math classes where I would not be paying attention to writing this book. A lot of this book came to fruition because I would not pay attention in class and I would just write my books.
That's a good lesson to all the children out there.
Yes, don't pay attention.
Oh, That's great.
And down to the alarm clock too. Actually, in the book, Kieran has this exact alarm clock, and I wrote that because I had the same clock when I was his age, and I was able to find the exact same one to put in this installation. So you really are seeing exactly the way I intended it to be. If this were a film, I would, be so happy to see props that really bring you back to that time period. And on the screen right now, it's the interview that an interview that Frank did with me, which is actually.
We'll pan.
Yes, I'll talk about State Suite actually.
Yeah.
So the in the book, there's a fictional band that Kieran is obsessed with called Stay Sweet, and early on in the novel, this latest album of theirs is released called Mandragora. So I had a bunch of these CDs made where the cover art is exactly how I envisioned it for the book. This very mysterious album cover with no information, really, just that it's called Mandragora and that it's explicit. But we have a bunch of discs in these with the audio portion of the interview that Frank did with me about a month ago. And if anyone's interested in those, we can send you the files too if you want to purchase one.
Yeah, if you don't have a CD player, which it's very likely.
Yes, but you can, I know, really a sign of the times.
And this CD was part of the crash.
Yes, it was. Yeah. So we have the damaged one here. Mandragora is actually, in a way, and I was thinking about this recently, if you're familiar with the Hitchcock term, Hitchcock also being one of my big influences. The MacGuffin. The MacGuffin being this object that seems like it has so much importance, but really it turns out not to. not to give away too much, but Mandragora is kind of, in an indirect way, a cause of something terrible that happens, and then it kind of just disappears because in a way, it's meant to trick you. You think the story is going to be about something, and then it turns and very much is not about that. And that was Hitchcock's term for an object or an idea.
Yeah, distraction.
Films, yes, that you thought the story was going to be about, but it's not at all.
It shifts away.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. All right, do you want to move on to the next series of work here?
And these are my collage pieces. These, I wanted to put together pieces that were very evocative of, if you will, the Hot Topic look. So, especially from the mid-2000s when Hot Topic was very alternative and punk, I just wanted to recreate this chaotic mind of this teen boy, all of this graffiti almost in a way, these clippings of band names and advertisements, but specifically ads of objects that are outdated now, because funny enough, 2006, as close as it seems, it's extremely far away in some ways, technology-wise. And I just wanted this to be like you're flipping. It's this social media explosion, if you will. In 2006, social media was a fairly new idea. We had MySpace. We didn't really have Facebook. YouTube was a brand new thing. And smartphones were not a thing. I unintentionally have the story take place up until about a month before the iPhone was first released. So we're really looking at the final days before smartphones became a thing. But I wanted this to look like a chaotic mind of this gay teenager. There's a lot of torment in this, I think, but also sex and music, just sort of this, I call it the Garden of Emo Delights, based on the Hieronymus Bosch painting, which is the Garden of Earthly.
Yeah, and I love that part of the show, this sequence of, they are referencing all historic, artworks. You have the Garden of Earthly Delights, and you got the Goya painting, Saturn devouring his son, and then the Last Supper by Da Vinci. And I love that. That tickles my my visual artist, in me.
Well, I'll start with this one, and I will mention the color choice. I tend to work with a lot of red and black because to me red is a very aggressive color, and not that it's calming in any way to me, but I find there's something aesthetically pleasing about crimson.
Mm-hmm.
So I very often use crimson in my work. I think it reminds me of that era. There was a lot of red used in, like I said, the Hot Topic. Like there was red everywhere.
Sure.
A lot of the venues where you would go to see bands like Stay Sweet or real bands from these alternative press magazines, a lot of these venues would be just flush red and have these very aggressive colors. So I wanted it to feel also like you're in one of those venues, this very grungy kind of place. So yes, the Garden of Emo Delights. And I chose that name because it reminded me of the chaos that is in the Garden of Earthly Delights by Bosch. This is Emo God following, excuse me, Emo God feeding his followers, and like you said, is very evocative of Saturn.
Yeah, Saturn devouring sun. Yeah, the Goya painting.
This is actually the first collage I ever did, and you'll notice it's somewhat Christ-like with the imagery, and the same thing with the CDs that I chose that are found in the record.
Right. Let's go back to that.
There's a lot of religious symbolism in this book. So you can see that both of these albums have the
figure has
the figure is very crucifix-like.
Right.
And while there is no visual interpretation of what is mentioned in the book about this object, that Kieran has a poster of Stay Sweet in his bedroom, where the lead singer Matt Daniels is very much has arms outstretched and he's holding a microphone and he's kind of tilted, very very much meant to be like Christ. And that's what I was trying to go with this piece. Have it be like this this crucifix image, because Stay Sweet is very much his god. Matt Daniels, the lead singer, is his god. And
it's like a worship thing.
this band is
Idol.
his religion.
Well, I know it's the title of the show and the title of the book as well, but can you unpack Black-Haired Boy?
Yes. So, in a way, it's meant to be obvious, but also double meaning, because it's misleading. Kieran's not actually black-haired. It's just what he dyes, his hair. And in a way that's meant to show how everything is really this mask for him. Very early in the book, he dyes his hair black because he wants to blend in. He wants to be someone else, someone who he's not. And not to give anything away, but as the story goes on, his hair changes and for several different reasons. And by the end of the book, he's completely unrecognizable for various reasons. So, Black-Haired Boy is really just the image Kieran wanted to create for himself, but it's not really who he is. And by the end of the book, he's more who he really is, based from all of the things that happened to him.
I think that's probably a good segue into the last kind of triptych part of the portraits.
I'll start with this drawing, and I'll explain who this is meant to be, because I haven't yet. But following the car accident in the novel, Kieran sort of drops into this depression, and I just wanted to point out, it says that the name that's on here, I did do this drawing, but it's meant to be a self-portrait by this person who is a character in the novel. But Kieran meets this boy named Izzy Marrero, who is 16 and has just moved in next door to him on Rivard Court. And Izzy takes Kieran under his wing as this friend who introduces him to a different kind of life and is just sort of this messiah to him. Again, more religious symbolism. I wanted Izzy to be like a Christ-like figure as well. So he's really the saint of a person who changes Kieran's life in the aftermath of this accident. And this mixed media piece, much like the collage work, is meant to be very alternative. I took a cassette tape and unraveled it almost like they're innards of this piece.
Yeah.
Wanted it to be like a painting you could plug in, except it wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, right.
And so really with Izzy, the rest of the story, without giving anything away, is about their relationship and how it grows and what Izzy does for Kieran.
Mm-hmm.
So the final drawing, which I think is the most personal piece to me,
Mm-hmm.
is Kieran.
Mm-hmm.
And I drew this about a year ago, after so many years of writing about this character. And I still remember the moment that I drew his eyes, because it was like the first time my character looked back at me. It was like my child.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very much who Kieran is to me. And with this story, I hope that sharing it with other people is almost like sharing my child's story. It's like raising a child with generations of people, hopefully. That's what I hope for anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that, thinking about that as a jumping from the word to the image, and how that's a different way to understand something.
Yes, I felt more of a connection with him when I drew him.
Mm-hmm.
It was an interesting thing, because I had written about him for so long, but I never saw him,
Yeah.
at least in my own interpretation.
Yeah, and it's interesting seeing that your visual stuff is very word-oriented.
Yes.
It's very loud parts of it, are the text, so it's in thinking about words and images together, I find really compelling. Yeah, I know that it's definitely an expression of a lot of different media in here, but can you talk about the different media you work in other than writing and how you feel about it?
Yeah, it's hard because a little bit of everything I do is in here.
Yeah, exactly.
I do design clothing, and these are very specific to the book, but I do my own designs too.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would be interesting to make alternative men's fashion with modern art,
Mm-hmm.
very much like Basquiat,
There we
which
go.
I'm wearing.
Yep,
I get a
perfect
lot of
example.
Another inspiration for visually is Basquiat, very much so.
Mm-hmm,
And people have mentioned that they see Basquiat on my work, which is a big compliment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I write. I do dabble in poetry. It's a medium of writing, but it's a completely different ballpark. That's something that's a little bit more recent to me. Other than collage work, I do some abstract painting, and I prefer abstract, I think, because visually, I'm very good at interpreting something in words. I can describe something in words and build a setting with words, but as far as making it look real, visually it's not easy for me, so I tend to levitate more towards an abstract view with art, because it's something I can control a little bit better.
Yeah, it feels like that we've touched on pretty much all the various forms of media. You got installation, you got sculpture, you got painting, and all kind of in a way,
Found objects.
all exactly, all kind of supporting the text. I find really it's amazing to think of it that way, and all those different dimensions.
Yes, and what I like about it is nobody will ever see this story the way I do. You can have everybody is going to have their own visions of who Kieran is, who Izzy is, what this bedroom looks like, but this is my interpretation, so you can actually see the original idea. And I think that's important in many ways. I don't think a lot of writers do things like this visually.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, and this is probably the number one question I got during the show is, how can I get this book?
Well,
do you want to, and how do you want? What do you want to share about that? You're in the process, right?
Yes, it's complicated because
Right.
I wanted to share as much about this book as I could with everyone, but because I am sending it out to publishers right now and really working hard to get it on the shelves, we're not selling it here because because I'm waiting for that to happen with a bigger publisher. But I want everyone to know that it's on its way.
Yeah, and we do have the prototype here, so
do.
we've got a few more days. Let's just go.
So let me go and show you. I did have prototypes printed, and I think that it's a very good representation of what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
This is available at the gallery. So
Yeah, please.
It is coming down very soon, but please come by the gallery.
Well, we have a gallery copy.
We do have a gallery copy.
Yeah, so Tristan was gracious enough to give the gallery copy.
You're more than welcome to come here and sit and read it. It's available to read.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to give away too much there.
Yeah, but thank you. That's really nice to have. So going forward, it's going to be part of the M Library.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes. So please come to M Galleries and you can sit here and read it. I want people to enjoy it. And thankfully this video will be up so you can revisit this experience too. When you're reading about Kieran's bedroom, you can see what it looks like in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is a good place to end. I want to ask you, so what is the overall desire for this book? What do you want it to accomplish?
My hope is that this is the book where Kieran as a character is speaking directly to the reader. Mm-hmm. Very early on, he is this very lost soul. He's sort of the one you feel like you should be taking care of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But by the end, he becomes very much the person who is taking care of the reader mm-hmm. from his experience. And I very much intentionally had it so that it ends with this message of positivity that there are young people out there who are very lost and feel that there's nothing to go forward with. But I want this book to show that no matter how hard it can be, we can all get out of our worst points in our life. Mm-hmm. And Kieran, to me, is a very strong character, despite it may seem the very opposite. But I think I want Kieran to be this voice for generations of young people who also feel lost. Mm-hmm. Sort of this poster child for these questioning teens. Mm-hmm. So I really just want it to be a tool to help people.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, and the show is going to be up until November 30th. So come on down if you want to see the full installation. And you can take a look at the book. You can listen to an interview. You can see all the different ways of experiencing Black Haired Boy. So thank you, Tristan. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Yep.